Come on, Slowpoke, it's not much further.
The deeper into the woods we went, the happier I was that I'd packed my headlamp. We'd been walking for hours, and it was obvious that Glimmer was slowing down to allow me to keep up. Did she make this trip every day to see me? I reminded myself that she also made it at night, too. How sharp were her eyes? Is it much farther, Glim? I'm getting winded. Glimmer smiled at me, offering me a hand up. I was doubled over on the path, looking most undignified as I tried to keep from heaving, my backpack sitting heavy on my back. I took her hand, trying to get balance again, noticing that she wasn't even sweaty.
It's not far, come on, I'll help you.
She took my arm, folding herself against me, and suddenly I could have walked another 20 miles into the Appalachian wilderness. It was the dead of night, as we went with no trail to guide us, and this was a part of the forest that I'd never seen before. Grandpa didn't like to go too deep into the woods. His legs got tired easily as the years went by, and this would have been a multi-day hike for him. The trees out here were so lush as the moon cut between the branches, the crunch of leaves sounding like the call of ages as I came down upon foliage that hadn't been disturbed in decades. It was breathtaking how beautiful it was out here, and the further we went, the more I wondered where one would hide a moon elf camp. Glimmer stopped suddenly, putting an arm out to silence me as she listened to something too low for me to hear. Humans do not usually come this far into the woods, but I suppose a human would have to be very special to ensnare the heart of a huntress. Glimmer relaxed, but not a lot. Something came from the woods, moving with all the grace of a hunting cat, and I suddenly wondered why Edward Cullen was stalking us through the woods. He wore leather pants, and not much else. His chest and feet were bare, his arms a rippling tapestry of muscle, but not the sculpted kind, like you'd find at most gyms. This was everyday muscle, like on a farmer or a construction worker, and it looked like the kind that my father would have called slab muscle. His hair was blonde, and it looked like it had been spun from dandelion fluff. Glimmer stood straight, her body turned so as to block me, and she seemed to be working hard not to reach for her bow.
Hello, Grantier. Why does the moon find you in the woods so close to my camp? I would have thought you would have left for your own camp by now.
The moon elf. The moon man? I didn't know, but it smiled at her, though its teeth held nothing but thinly veiled contempt whenever it happened to stray to me. Did you forget, Aurelia? I am an honored guest of Clan Marsific. There is a place by your fire for me, as long as I desire.
Perhaps you should temper your desire then, Grantier.
She continued to walk, pointedly pulling me by the hand as the elf fell in beside us.
We do not require an escort, Grantier. You might return to your hunt.
This was the angriest I had ever seen Glimmer in the whole time I'd known her. It was a little scary. Granther, however, was unfazed. I was returning to camp anyway. 3 by night may move as safely as 2, may they not? She didn't answer him, but when he turned to look at me, his smile was at odds with the hot coals burning behind his eyes. You must be eyes intended. I am Granther Sufafir of the northern camp, the place your people call Michigan. He didn't offer me a hand, and Glimmer had the other hand I usually shake with, so I just nodded, not bothering to correct his pronunciation. That's a long trip. I don't believe I've ever been farther than Virginia myself. Do you do much hunting up there? Granther smiled. Oh, yes. The deer and moose are fine hunting there, and we fish the streams. Have you done much hunting of late? He asked, clearly leading the conversation towards something. No, not really. I usually go to the store if I need groceries. Granther laughed, directing it at Glimmer. I suppose that's where you get your clothes, too, unless you raise some strange animals on your land. These pants are made from a moose I killed last season. Very nice, I said, acting as if I was unbothered by the jab. Maybe if you get another one this season, you can make some boots to match. Gotta be frosty on the feet, wandering through the snow barefoot. Moon elves do not wear shoes. We feel the earth through our feet, and it helps us hunt. Yeah, I had some cousins like that, I said, grinning at him. They used to go barefoot everywhere until one of them stepped on a cactus in Arizona when they were on vacation. Now, they at least wear sandals. Granthier didn't seem to know what to say to that, but I smiled as I heard Glimmer cover a laugh. I don't see what is so funny, he said, his good nature melting away like spring snow. He does not hunt his own meat. He does not make his own clothes. He makes light of our traditions, and he is crass. Why would you wish to? But he had overstepped. Glimmer turned on him, her face very close to his.
That is not your concern, Granthier Sosafir. For your intelligence, he is a magi, one of the wise, and he has fought things that would send you screaming into the woods to change your filthy pants. Go back to your own fire, Grant. Go back and find someone who will return your affection. Because it will not be me, no matter how much you try to discredit my betrothed.
Granthier looked as if someone had slapped him, and when he slunk off into the trees, I couldn't help but wonder what all that had been about. So, is he your brother or something? A cousin, maybe? Seems like he's worried about you and me getting together, so I figured. Glimmer stopped in the trail, and when I bumped into her, her back was hard as stone.
Granthier was the man my father wanted me to join with. He's the son of the camp chief where he comes from, and he thinks that makes him special. It often leads him to let his tongue make trouble for the rest of him.
Oh, I said, our journey continuing. So, he's, what, your ex, I suppose.
If that is what you call someone when they are no longer someone's indeed, then yes.
Understood, I thought. The jealous ex come just to make his play for the lady's hand once again. Well, good luck, buddy. I had a little more to work with than a bow and chiseled abs. We came through a thick set of trees, almost too thick for my backpack to squeeze through, and suddenly we were standing in front of a cave. Appalachia had a lot of subterranean caves, but I'd never seen one outside of a state park. Glimmer went straight in as my headlamp illuminated the slick walls of the entrance, and we descended into the depths.
Praise yourself. It's impressive to outsiders, I've been told.
We came suddenly into an open cavern, and I heard my gasp rise to the roof like a balloon. The cave was lit by glowing fungus, as well as surface openings that seemed to be glassed over somehow. I could just imagine the hikers that happened to look down and see an underground town below them, and it made me chuckle. There were abodes built into the walls of the ceiling, but some of them were on ground level too. There were fires on the ground as well, and a lot of moon elves as they went about their daily lives. The cave was huge, probably bigger than a football stadium, and as we came into the cave, I heard people whispering and the sounds of running feet. "We've been spotted," I said, as a group of kids abandoned whatever they'd been doing and ran to the town proper.
They know we are here. They have known for the last 5 miles or so, I would imagine. The hunters have been out since moonrise, and thought Granthier show himself to us, most would have simply reported us in the territory and go back to their duties. Come on, let's meet the camp.
She sounded nervous, but also resolved. The lower floors were like a village, with little huts and fires and people tending to both. The elves I could see wore more leathers and hides, as Glimmer did, and their hair was either short or tied into braids to keep it out of the way. They carried knives on belts, a few of them even had swords, but the ones with swords had actual armor, so I figured they must be watchmen or something. As we got closer to the village, one of those in armor came out to meet us, and I noticed hands going to swords as we approached. "Halt, traveler! What's your—" But they saw a Glimmer. First Hunter Marsific, you have come back. This is your betrothed, then, I take it.
I have come to introduce him to the camp.
The watchman parted, and Glimmer stood before the assembled elves like a kid getting ready to give a presentation. She was nervous, her hands shaking a little, but I gave her hand a squeeze, and it seemed to give her strength.
This is my intended. Marcus Carmichael has agreed to join his life to that of the camp. Welcome him as you would welcome me, and give him all the respect you would grant of me.
They welcomed me as one, bowing their heads as they raised their voices, and I waved, a little unsure what to do. Hi, nice to meet all of you. What do we do now? I asked Glimmer, side mouth.
Now we present ourselves to the council and the queen.
Perfect, I said, smiling back like I wasn't completely terrified. Where do we do that? Glimmer pointed to the other side of the cave where a large, multi-tiered space occupied the whole back wall.
At the palace. Come, we have to make the pilgrimage.
As we set out, the crowd walked with us. We picked up more as we went, and soon the 30 or so had become more like 100. They fanned out behind us, giving us a little room as we walked, and I could feel their presence like a cloud. Why are they following us?
To witness your presentation to the queen.
Ah, of course, I said, nodding as we left the town and walked into the space between it and the palace. Why are they doing that?
It's part of the betrothal. Just go along with it. We'll be there soon.
The palace looked like a tiered honeycomb the closer we got. There was a staircase that led up to it, and I could see a royal assembly at the top. There were more guards up there, and the sight of them kindled something in my memory. That green armor and the bullet-shaped helmets looked like the ones I had seen at the garden, but I didn't think about it too hard. Glimmer's people were numerous, and I'm sure they all had similar armor. I saw some elves in robes at the top, and they must be the council she had talked about. There were 12, but I found myself drawn to a silver-haired man at the end on the left side. His eyes were on Glimmer, and he had a look about him that told me that this was the father I would need to impress. The queen stood near them, and she was resplendent in a flowing gown of silver that sparkled like stars. It wasn't until we got to the top, however, that I realized why the guards had looked so familiar.
My queen, may I present...
The wizard's apprentice, the queen said, looking bemused as she reached out to take my hand. My word, I did not think I would see you again. Where is your teacher? Is he with you? Glimmer was looking at me, dumbstruck, and I grinned a little sheepishly at her. I'm sorry, my lady, but he was too old to make the journey, as much as he wanted to. Had he known we were coming to see you again, he might have mustered the strength to come. The queen laughed, and it sounded like church bells. My people, this is one of the brave wizards who came to the protection of the lady and her domain back when winter attacked. Our casualties would have been many more if it had not been for he and his teacher. He slew one of the Green Men's champions in single combat, an act many saw with their own eyes, and stood strong against the Green Man in the final battle. First Hunter, Aurelia Marsific, is this the one you intend to be bound with? Glimmer stuttered for a moment, finally answering in the affirmative. The queen reached down and lifted her up, bringing our hands together as she turned us to face the crowd. Then you have your queen's blessing. And ours, the camp intoned. Then we are in agreement. The betrothal is confirmed and blessed. A cheer went up, but I could tell from the look Glimmer was giving me that she was not pleased with only now hearing about how I'd put myself in danger and not told her. That look let me know that we would be talking about this, and my answers might depend on whether our betrothal lasted the night. You're still here. Thanks so much for joining us for tonight's spooky tale. If you'd like a little bit more spooky in your life, why not click on one of the videos that appears at the end of our story? Or maybe head on over to one of our playlists where you can get your fill of spooky content. If you like your spooky a little more tactile, I've got a new book that's come out. If you'd like your own copy, there's a link below in the description where you can get your own copy of my spooky book. If you like what you see here on the channel and think you might like to support in a more monetized way, then why not come over to Patreon or become a member on YouTube? Speaking of, let's go ahead and thank our members now. Thanks to Civ Garstad, Unicorn Hollow, and Army Dude for being our spooky ghost contributors. Thanks to Janet, Lee Kendall, Saikat, Ronda J, Sue Casper, and Valinator for being our spooky skeleton contributors. And thanks to Oh Snap, Hi Stacy, Winter, Xaronan, Stephanie Carrington, Tyler Parker, Cinnamon Fox, Grim Reaper, TomBoiTopUwU, and Queen Sheebah for being our ghostly reader tier contributors. And a big thanks to Scott Donahue for being our ghostly writer tier contributor. Thanks everyone, we just couldn't do the show without you. If you'd like to support the channel, then come on down to Patreon or become a member on YouTube. Spooky Skeleton tier contributors, that's our $5 tier, get their spooky 12 hours early at 8:30 a.m. as opposed to 8:30 p.m. my time, of course. And while ghostly reading is only a tier that's available on Patreon, you get a signed copy of my book anytime I write one on your doorstep in hopefully a timely manner. If you'd like a book, we have many on Amazon. I've got links below if you'd like to follow those. Should get you to my page so you can buy any one of my 8 books I believe we're up to now. I'm sure they'd look really nice on your shelf, and I'll sign them for you if you can find me out in the wild. And as always, thanks for stopping by. Dr. Plague, signing off. Have a wonderful evening.